What if I told you that one of Hollywood's golden couples, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, are at the center of a disturbing scandal that's not being talked about? That the film It Ends With Us didn't just suffer from fan backlash or casting drama, but that behind the scenes there were power moves, manipulation, smear campaigns, and threats so intense, insiders are calling it one of the most corrupt cover-ups in recent Hollywood memory. And at the heart of it all, allegations that Blake Lively used her industry connections, influence, and even flirtation to quietly seize creative control from director Justin Baldoni, only to accuse him of misconduct when he refused to comply. But that's just the beginning, because what started as a disagreement over a book adaptation turned into a nightmare of intimidation, media silence, and emotional destruction that left Baldoni fleeing Hollywood altogether. And trust me, what's being whispered in Hollywood boardrooms right now is a lot darker than anything you've seen in the trailers. This is the true story behind It Ends With Us. The story Blake and Ryan don't want you to hear. At first glance, the headlines made it seem like your typical creative disagreement. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, two Hollywood names clashing over how to adapt Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel It Ends With Us. But behind those carefully worded press releases was a lawsuit that shocked insiders, and a PR war that exposed just how far some celebrities will go to control a narrative. Sources close to the production now say Blake and her team weren't just fighting for creative input, they were orchestrating a hostile takeover. According to insiders, from the very first day on set, Blake wanted full control of the script, the costumes, the music, even the editing room. And when director Justin Baldoni pushed back, she didn't just argue, she threatened. Allegedly, threats were made to walk off set, skip promotional duties, sue the production, and even manipulate stories within the media to paint Baldoni as difficult, or worse, dangerous. But here's the kicker. When Baldoni finally refused one of Blake's requests to access unreleased footage known as dailies, Blake's team responded not with negotiation, but with legal fire. She sent a 17-point legal letter with implications of harassment. A document so damaging, insiders say it destroyed Justin's ability to say no ever again. And while the public only saw reports of a cast shakeup and delays, behind closed doors, Hollywood execs were already whispering, "This isn't about a book anymore, this is a war." Here's where the story gets darker and dirtier. You'd think a studio like Sony would step in to mediate the chaos, right? Wrong. Sources say Sony wasn't just aware of the tension between Blake and Justin, they were the reason it all began. Insiders claim Justin never wanted Blake Lively for the lead role. She was allegedly forced into the project by Sony executives looking to cast a bigger name with wider market appeal. The original character of Lily was written as a woman in her mid-20s, but with Blake in her late 30s, Justin had to rewrite entire sections of the script just to justify her casting. And here's the messed up part. When fans criticized Blake as too old for the role, Sony pushed Justin to publicly own the backlash. They wanted him to protect Blake's image, even though it was their decision to cast her in the first place. From that point forward, Blake allegedly knew she had the upper hand. She had the studio's backing, she had the PR machine, and she had something even more powerful, a connection to Ryan Reynolds, whose influence in Hollywood circles is no secret. So every time Justin tried to draw the line, whether it was over script notes, camera setups, or editing decisions, he wasn't just going against Blake, he was going against Sony. Insiders say Blake used this leverage ruthlessly. If she didn't get her way, she'd threaten to walk, threaten to sue, threaten to skip the red carpet premiere, and Sony, instead of reining her in, they allegedly enabled it all just to protect their relationship with Blake and Ryan. This wasn't just creative conflict, this was a power play, and Blake Lively was winning. This next part, it's where things stop being messy and start being dangerous. Early in production, some fans noticed flirty banter between Blake and Justin Baldoni, but insiders say it was never real. It was calculated. Sources close to the set allege Blake tried a tactic she's used before, what's called strategic flirtation. She'd send sweet texts, banter during meetings, be overly complimentary, all of it designed to soften Justin up and gain more creative control behind the scenes. But here's the twist: Justin didn't bite. In fact, insiders say he shut it down politely, firmly, and most of all, professionally. Justin's known for being grounded, married, and deeply committed to his family and faith. And that reportedly infuriated Blake, because according to the source, Blake believes every man wants her. And when Justin resisted the usual charm, her tactics allegedly shifted from flirtation to intimidation. It all exploded when Blake demanded access to daily footage, known as the dailies. Justin said no, not out of ego, but as the director and owner of the film, he had the legal right to control those edits. That single no became the trigger. Within 24 hours, Blake and her legal team reportedly accused Justin of inappropriate conduct on set. Let that sink in. An executive says no to a non-editor, and suddenly he's facing a 17-point legal threat filled with vague but deeply damaging allegations. While the letter didn't explicitly accuse Justin of sexual harassment, the implication was there. The cloud of suspicion had been planted. From that moment on, sources say Blake had him cornered. She had the backing of Sony. She had her own PR team spinning a new narrative. And now, she had a legal document that positioned her as a victim and Justin as a problem. And even though crew members say nothing in the letter matched what actually happened on set, the damage was done. Justin couldn't push back without risking being accused of retaliation. It was a total checkmate. The flirtation didn't work, so Blake allegedly flipped the script and weaponized the system. And it would only get worse from here. After that legal letter dropped, Justin Baldoni wasn't just dealing with stress, he was being suffocated. Sources say the moment Blake gained leverage, everything changed. What had started as a collaborative vision became a one-woman show. Blake reportedly began acting like the director, the editor, the producer, all at once. According to insiders, she made unilateral creative changes, demanded rewrites, dictated the wardrobe, even tried to re-edit entire scenes. And she wasn't shy about throwing her weight around. Sony backed her at every turn. Why? Because Blake had connections, not just with Sony, but with WME, one of Hollywood's most powerful talent agencies. And through WME came Ryan Reynolds. Ryan wasn't even in the movie, but insiders say his influence hovered like a dark cloud over the entire production. Anytime Blake didn't get her way, she allegedly ran to the studio, and they caved, fearing backlash, lawsuits, or Ryan's silent wrath. One crew member said, Blake never took no as an answer. She'd threaten to walk off set, skip press tours, or go to HR, sometimes over things as small as a shot she didn't like. And Baldoni, he had no protection. He may have been the director and rights holder, but when the studio backs the star, you lose every time. They say the pressure got so bad, Justin nearly walked away from the project completely. He lost passion, he lost control. He was being painted as difficult, while Blake was being positioned as the savior of a film she was silently taking over. And as for her endgame, it wasn't just about this film. Insiders say she wanted the sequel rights too, and was angling to become the director of the next movie. So the plan? Make herself the face of the franchise and push Justin completely out. And just when it couldn't get worse, it did. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, the set of It Ends With Us wasn't just tense, it was toxic. Cast and crew were terrified. People were walking on eggshells. Why? Because Blake Lively, according to multiple insiders, had created an environment where any pushback meant retaliation. She was allegedly threatening to pull out of press events, leak internal drama, or even sue the production. All to get what she wanted. And every time she didn't, someone got thrown under the bus. Sources say she kept weaponizing HR threats, using even minor disagreements as grounds for legal complaints. One insider described it like this: if she didn't like a note from the director, it became a harassment issue. If she didn't get the edit she wanted, she hinted at lawsuits. And Justin, he was crumbling under the weight of it all. By the time post-production began, he reportedly lost all creative control. He wasn't directing anymore, he was surviving. And here's where things got truly sinister. When premiere night came around, Blake didn't want Justin there, not because of scheduling or logistics, but because, according to reports, she wanted all the spotlight. She wanted to appear not just as the star, but as the savior of the film, her film. So how do you erase the man who actually made it? Threaten him, intimidate him, exile him? One insider claimed Ryan Reynolds personally called Justin and said, "Don't come to the premiere, nobody wants you there." He allegedly labelled Justin a predator, even suggesting, offhand, that he knew people who would mess him up if he showed up. And it worked. At the premiere, Justin and his wife were treated like pariahs. People wouldn't go near them. The media ignored them. The cast, many of whom had once supported him, had all unfollowed him on social media. Why? Because Blake allegedly promised them the world. According to reports, she told cast members they'd be invited to Taylor Swift's VIP NFL box seats. She hinted at roles in the sequel, expensive gifts, and access to Hollywood's inner circle, if they just stayed on her side. And even if some didn't believe the stories about Justin, they stayed quiet out of fear. Because in Hollywood, crossing the wrong person doesn't just cost you a job, it can end your career. This wasn't just ego or drama anymore, it was a calculated, PR-fueled character assassination. And when the media ran with it, there was no turning back. At this point, It Ends With Us wasn't just a film, it had become a battlefield. And Justin Baldoni was the one being dragged across it. But this war wasn't just about one man versus one woman. It was about something much darker. The entire system was rigged. Multiple journalists allegedly knew Blake's narrative was false. They knew the accusations were exaggerated, even fabricated, but no one would say it out loud. Why? Because if they corrected the story now, they'd be exposing themselves too. One insider said, "The media ran with Blake's version of events. If they backtrack now, they'll be admitting they were wrong. And that means lawsuits, lost trust, and ruined reputations." So what do they do instead? They double down. The media buried anything that contradicted the official story. Legitimate witnesses were silenced. PR firms pushed counter-narratives. Studios feared getting sued or cancelled, so they turned their backs on Justin too. And behind the scenes, witness intimidation was rampant. Process servers followed people, crew members were harassed, people with limited means, editors, assistants, stylists, were allegedly threatened with legal action if they cooperated with Justin's team. And even worse, many of them were told, "You'll never work in this town again." This wasn't just about protecting Blake's image, it was about protecting Hollywood's elite ecosystem. Because Blake and Ryan aren't just actors, they're powerful. They're connected to Sony, to WME, to major execs and producers. And people were terrified of crossing them. One source claimed, "Everyone's too afraid to speak, too afraid to even say her name." Meanwhile, Justin, he was spiraling, emotionally wrecked, creatively shattered. He reportedly told friends he didn't even want to edit the film. He couldn't watch the footage without being reminded of what had been taken from him. His dream project, the one he bought rights to, developed and poured years into, had become his worst nightmare. He eventually fled to Costa Rica, not on vacation, but in emotional exile. He couldn't bear to stay in California. The trauma was that deep. One insider said, "Justin may never work in Hollywood again. He doesn't even care anymore. He just wants his name cleared." And if that sounds dramatic, it is, because this isn't a story about egos or casting drama. This is a story about how Hollywood breaks people and protects the powerful at all costs. For Justin Baldoni, the cost of standing his ground was everything: his studio, his health, his future. But what about Blake Lively? On the surface, she still has it all: the designer campaigns, the red carpets, the magazine covers. But behind the facade, the cracks are showing. Multiple insiders now say that Blake's Hollywood persona, the witty, stylish Golden Girl, was just that, a persona. And the longer this scandal drags out, the more the mask slips. She wanted to be seen as a visionary, a multi-hyphenate, a creative force, someone who could act, direct, produce, and dominate the cultural conversation. But instead, she's now at the center of one of the most chilling PR takedowns in recent industry memory. One insider explained she wanted full control of the narrative, of the edit, of the franchise, and when she didn't get it, she set fire to everything. And that fire didn't just scorch Justin, it consumed everyone in its path. Crew members afraid to work again, actors manipulated into choosing sides, reporters blackballed for asking the wrong questions. Even her alleged friendship with Taylor Swift reportedly ended because of her obsessive behavior. Now sources claim Taylor blocked Blake altogether after relentless pressure. Pressure that included promises, manipulation, and back-channel campaigns. Blake thought she could control the media, the studio, the story, but now her own reputation is teetering on the edge. Even her own cast members are reportedly starting to distance themselves, unsure how long they can keep up the charade. And with the sequel rights to It Starts With Us still in question, one thing is clear: if Blake thought this movie would make her a creative legend, it may have just become her downfall. Because this scandal might seem like just another behind-the-scenes fallout about what happens when celebrity, a director clash, and unchecked power collide behind the scenes. But in reality, it's a blueprint for how Hollywood's power machine operates in the shadows. Think about it. One man bought the rights to a book he believed in. He worked for years to bring it to life, putting everything on the line. Then comes a star with industry clout, a powerful husband, and a deep bench of corporate allies. And suddenly, he's the villain. The minute he said no, everything changed. The flirtation flipped into false allegations. The disagreements became character assassinations. And a man who once dreamed of telling vulnerable, meaningful stories was now hiding out in Costa Rica, terrified for his safety, disillusioned by the very system he used to admire. This isn't just about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. This is about what happens when someone with less power dares to challenge the Hollywood elite, when studios prioritize profit and influence over truth, when image consultants and PR firms weaponize narratives to destroy reputations, when celebrity is used not as entertainment, but as a smokescreen for manipulation. And let's not forget the real victims in all this: the crew members, the writers, the smaller players whose voices were silenced, careers stalled, or lives threatened just because they knew too much or refused to play along. In the end, this scandal lays bare the dark equation of modern Hollywood: power plus image greater than truth. And when the cameras stop rolling, what's left behind is a broken system that chews people up, spits them out, and dares them to fight back, while everyone else stays silent, afraid they'll be next. So what do you think? Was Justin Baldoni a victim of a ruthless Hollywood power grab? Did Blake Lively manipulate the system to steal control of It Ends With Us? Or is there more to this story we haven't been told yet? Whatever the truth is, one thing's clear: this wasn't just a movie gone wrong. It was a full-on war for control, influence, and public perception. And the people who dared to resist paid the ultimate price. The industry may be built on glitz and glam, but behind the curtain? It's a cold game of manipulation, silencing, and strategy. And sometimes the real story isn't the one on screen, it's the one that never makes it out alive. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Blake orchestrated this? Is Hollywood protecting its own again? We want to hear from you. And if you found this video eye-opening, smash that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss an upload. We're here to uncover the stories they don't want you to hear. And that's today's blast from the cannon. What do you think about all the drama? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everything. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you're first in line for the next celebrity explosion. This is Gossip Cannon, signing off, where the truth isn't just spilled, it's detonated. Explosion.